Have you ever found yourself reacting maybe in ways that just feel off, like out of sync with what you're actually thinking?
Or, feeling stuck, like
Yeah.
you're in these patterns you just can't break.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe carrying this kind of deep, I don't know, sadness you can't quite place,
Yeah.
or that feeling that whenever something good happens, it's not going to last.
Hmm.
Well, today we're really diving deep into this whole world of relational trauma. We're drawing on some fascinating work by Juha Klaavu.
And this isn't necessarily about, big single events.
Right, it's more subtle.
Yeah, it's about those early relationships, often the unseen stuff that kind of shapes us right from the beginning.
Okay. So our mission today, really, is to unpack how these very first interactions, especially like in the first year of life,
Yeah.
how they create this unconscious blueprint.
A blueprint that affects, well, pretty much everything, right? Your self-worth, how you do relationships as an adult, maybe even your physical health sometimes.
We want to explore those underlying things that often lead to feeling unworthy or ashamed, or that constant sense that the good stuff gets taken away.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. We'll be drawing from some really rich sources that dig into these deep, often kind of hidden truths about why we are the way we are and why we react like we do.
Let's get into it.
So let's start right at the basics.
Yeah.
What is relational trauma, according to these sources? It's important, I think, to separate it from what we usually think of as trauma.
Yeah, good distinction. Because unlike, say, a one-off external event, relational trauma builds up. It's the result of a long-term relationship dynamic, usually with a primary caregiver, often the mother.
Okay.
And what's really key here, I think, is how it starts so early. When a baby's body and mind are, completely linked, their reality is described as a total mental state.
Total mental state. What does that mean in practice?
It means that any emotional neglect or abandonment, it isn't just a feeling, it's experienced as this fundamental disruption to their entire being. It creates what the source calls a universe of pain.
Wow. So even if, like, the physical needs are met, the baby's fed, clean, warm, if that emotional connection, that presence is missing, maybe the mother's there physically but just checked out emotionally,
Yeah.
that counts as abandonment.
Precisely. The source really highlights how a mother's instability, her own fluctuating emotions, can create this constant feeling of rejection for the child. And that stops a sense of basic security from ever really forming. Instead, you get this deep, lasting insecurity.
And here's where it gets really, quite heavy, actually. This early emotional abandonment, the sources say, it lays down this unconscious foundation for how you see yourself.
Right. It leads to these profound kind of holistic feelings and beliefs like I'm perfect, I'm different, or I must be bad or wicked, or even I don't deserve love, I'm not enough, I'm worthless.
And that sense of being responsible for everything, that magical guilt.
Yes, that too. And ultimately, I am a totally shameful being. And these aren't just separate ideas, they kind of merge into this single unconscious way of experiencing yourself.
One of the most striking ideas, I thought, was this deeply embedded belief that the good does not belong to me and is always taken away. That's not just a thought, is it? It's felt.
Oh, absolutely. It's a deeply felt truth. This unconscious assumption translates into this basic distrust of the world, of life.
So even when good things do happen,
There's that immediate fear it's going to disappear, or maybe even a sense that something bad has to happen now, like a price has to be paid.
wow.
Yeah, one patient in the source described it perfectly. When something good happened, the first thought was always, when will this go away? What's the catch?
That sounds exhausting.
It is, and it's so deep it even shows up culturally. The source mentions a patient pointing out a famous Finnish poem, Laulu Honesta, which talks about needing to hide your happiness so it won't be snatched away, like a collective trauma.
Okay, so what does this all mean for how we behave? It explains why we might cope in ways that from the outside look really counterintuitive, like this idea of deep dependence and need. How is that different from just healthy connection?
Well, connecting it back, this deep dependence really stems from that early abandonment. It's like an unconscious, lifelong search for that missing maternal love, that foundational security.
Right.
The source mentions a patient who, even though she understood it intellectually, she just had to pull out of therapy the moment her deep neediness and dependency got activated. It shows how powerful that underlying force is.
And that desperate search, that attempt to fill the void,
Yeah.
that can lead to addictions, right?
Yeah.
And not just substances.
Exactly. Addictions are framed here as these really profound attempts to escape that universe of pain or to try and fill that emptiness left by the emotional abandonment.
Like self-medication?
Precisely. There's a really moving example of a 12-year-old boy. He suffered from chronic anxiety, depression, and then he tried alcohol. And suddenly he felt this immense relief, like a new world of lightness opened up.
You can see the pull then.
Absolutely. It shows how compelling these escape routes can be. And yeah, the text also discusses workaholism or bigorexia, that compulsive drive for muscularity or other eating disorders. They're all ways of trying to manage that inner chaos, fueled by this huge, unconscious anxiety.
It really sounds like being in a constant state of high alert inside.
It often is.
And the sources also talk about hiding
Yeah.
and this deep fear of rejection.
Yes, definitely. I mean, if you fundamentally believe your true self is bad or flawed, what do?
You hide it.
You hide it. You learn unconsciously to adapt to become what you think others expect or need. But the paradox is, this can actually lead you to seek out relationships where you aren't truly seen or accepted.
Why would you do that?
Because it unconsciously repeats the original abandonment. It feels familiar, even if it's painful. The sources describe a patient who kept choosing partners who just couldn't really see her because her underlying belief was, well, it's better to be in any relationship than be totally alone and abandoned.
Gosh. And that must lead to that feeling of being behind a glass wall you mentioned earlier, or plexiglass. Like, you're there, but disconnected.
Exactly. That sense of alienation, feeling like an object in the world, not a subject driving your own life. It's a painful result of always adapting to others instead of tuning into yourself.
Like an inner slavery.
That's the term used, yes. Your life isn't guided by your authentic self, but by this unconscious reflex to adapt. One patient even said she felt like a robot and realized she'd gone so deep, she'd even adopted other people's taste in music without realizing it.
Wow, that paints a picture. And it makes sense then when you think about indecision. The sources suggest it's not just about finding it hard to choose A or B.
Right. It prompts the question, is it really an inability to decide, or is it more like an unconscious search for the right answer, the ideal solution, the one that would please those internalized parental figures? There's a compelling story about an entrepreneur, successful in business, but he couldn't pursue his childhood dream of being an artist. Why? Because his wife disapproved, and unconsciously, that echoed his internalized parents' disapproval. It shows how deep these patterns run, affecting huge life choices.
And when these wounds aren't addressed, they don't just stay psychological, do they? They can actually show up in the body, and the sources call these somatic manifestations.
Absolutely. The body often has to carry the burden when the emotions themselves are just too overwhelming to feel consciously.
So what does that look like?
It could be persistent physical symptoms that doctors can't find a clear cause for, or maybe just a state of constant internal alarm, feeling tense, restless, having trouble sleeping. It's often linked to alexithymia,
Which is?
difficulty recognizing or naming your own emotions, or even understanding others because those feelings got walled off, dissociated so early on.
Okay, so these patterns are deep.
Uh-huh.
How do they keep, well, repeating? Why do we get stuck?
Yeah.
The sources talk about two main unconscious mechanisms. First, the tinted glasses.
Yeah, think about it literally. If you wear green glasses, everything looks green, right? Well, relational trauma acts like those glasses. It makes you perceive the world through the filter of your own pain. You might see rejection or criticism or invalidation everywhere, even when it's not intended, or you might blow it way out of proportion when it is there.
So you're reacting to the past and the present.
Exactly. It's an unconscious distortion of reality. Innocent remarks can feel like personal attacks.
Okay. And the second one, the compulsion to repeat. This sounds kind of ominous, like we're drawn back to the scene of the crime almost.
That's a good way to put it, actually. It is an unconscious drive to recreate the relationship dynamics of our childhood. The source uses this really helpful metaphor, the key and lock.
Key and lock.
Yeah, certain chaotic self-states formed in childhood, like feeling victimized or maybe feeling oppressive yourself. These act like a lock. And unconsciously, you seek out people who function as the key to fit that lock, someone who will play the corresponding role.
To recreate the dynamic.
To recreate the familiar, painful dynamic. There's an example of a patient whose life was chaotic, filled with substance use, but only when they were in a relationship.
Really?
Yeah, because they kept choosing partners who perfectly mirrored their childhood trauma dynamics. When they were single, they were completely stable. It's why therapy often spends so much time looking at relationship history to spot those repeating key and lock patterns.
That makes so much sense. It helps understand why just choosing better isn't always simple.
Not at all. It's unconscious.
The sources also give us a way to think about the depth of these issues, right? Different levels of difficulty.
Yes, the psychoanalytic triad: psychotic, borderline, and neurotic. Now, most people operate mainly on the neurotic level, but everyone, the source suggests, carries at least traces of this deeper relational trauma.
So it's like a spectrum.
Kind of. Think of it like house repairs. Neurotic issues might be like needing a new coat of paint, manageable with the right tools. Deeper issues, borderline or psychotic level structures, might mean the foundations need serious work. It's not just cosmetic. And understanding these levels helps explain why you can't just tell someone with deep trauma to snap out of it or just think positive. The structure itself is compromised.
That clarifies a lot, especially thinking about people who genuinely seem unable to even say what they want or need. It's not just being difficult. It might be something much deeper.
Precisely. The source gives these really stark examples of patients who, because the trauma was so profound, literally couldn't answer basic questions like, who are you? Or what do you want?
Because that true self hadn't really formed.
Exactly. It hadn't had the space or safety to develop adequately, which highlights why the therapist's role is so crucial. Sometimes it's about helping someone find their internal world, maybe for the first time.
So, given how deep this can go,
Mm-hmm.
what does healing actually look like? Is it like a straight line upwards?
Definitely not linear. It's usually slow and it's cyclical. You often revisit the same core issues, but hopefully at deeper levels each time.
That sounds frustrating.
It can be. The source acknowledges that. Patients can sometimes feel like they're getting crazier or sicker at first, especially when they start touching that core pain that's been buried for so long.
But that's actually a sign things are moving.
It's often a sign that the real issue, the core trauma, is finally being addressed. The analogy used is learning to walk. A baby falls down a lot, it looks clumsy, it's messy, but eventually they find their balance and move freely.
Right. It's about facing the root, even though it hurts.
Exactly. And the relationship with the therapist becomes absolutely central. It needs to be that safe, empathic space where those early wounds can be, in a sense, re-experienced but processed differently this time.
A corrective emotional experience.
Precisely. And the source is clear. No parent is perfect. We all carry stuff, and we often pass down our own unresolved pain that's transgenerational trauma, but therapy offers a real chance to break those cycles, to develop an authentic self.
So the goal isn't necessarily a life completely free from pain, because life has pain.
No, not at all.
It's more about living a life that's genuinely yours, even with all its complexities, its real joys and real sorrows.
That's it exactly. The aim is shifting from being unconsciously driven by the ghosts of the past to living from your authentic core, engaging with life as it is, stepping out from behind that glass wall and really connecting to yourself and to the world.
Wow, that was quite a deep dive. Really profound insights there into how those earliest times keep echoing, often in ways we just don't recognize.
And the point isn't blame, is it? It's about gaining clarity, developing some compassion for ourselves and maybe for others too, and finding ways to actually heal.
Right.
It's about realizing that even really deep psychological suffering isn't some kind of mysterious, incurable curse. It's something that can be understood. And if it can be understood, it can be worked with, it can be treated.
And maybe that's the biggest takeaway for anyone listening, just knowing what might be going on inside you. That awareness itself can be the first step, that feeling of being understood, even just by yourself.
Absolutely. Whether it sparks self-reflection or conversations with people you trust or maybe seeking professional help, just acknowledging these patterns is incredibly powerful.
It really brings home that while the journey might be tough, finding yourself, living an authentic life, it's actually possible.
It really is. Genuine self-discovery is within reach.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. If our earliest relationships laid down that initial blueprint, what new structures, what new possibilities might you start to imagine and maybe even begin to build for yourself starting today?